We're here to celebrate the beginning of the new year, and we chose beginnings. Really, it was Charles's choice a few weeks ago when he knew he was flying into Canada to visit family.
Love it.
And we think that's so appropriate because it is a new beginning. And my feeling is a new beginning starts with a fresh slate, right? And everything ended with yesterday's slate. So the key is how much legacy you want to take with you and setting the course for future happiness and success. So with that, chat's open. We depend on chat to direct us in the most relevant ways. Charles, what can you talk towards beginnings, and how do you see that transition from one year to the next?
Well, yesterday we talked a lot about finishing well and ending 2023 well, having gratitude and appreciation for what you did accomplish. And when you operate that way, you create the space for you to be able to create what you would desire in the future. And a lot of people tend to go into goal setting and go into new beginnings like a new year with a lot of excitement about what they want to create for the coming year or the coming years, but they don't realize that they're being held back by things in the past. So I often say, be informed by your past, but not limited by your past. That's a good way of looking at it. So we all make mistakes, learn from failures. We talked about that a little bit yesterday. Those are things that can inform you going forward. Be careful on the left-hand turns at a green stoplight. That's being informed by the past. But meanwhile, move forward and really create what's your vision? What are you excited about? If you could wave a magic wand, what would you do differently this year that you had never done before? How can you get out of your comfort zone? That type of thing.
Wonderful. Kelly?
I love that. And I feel, I don't know, you just saying all that made me think last year, I think one of probably on the first show that I did with you, Don, was, you know, things limit us that are our fears generally, right? The source of what stops us from moving anything. And moving forward doesn't always have to be huge steps. They can be small steps that take us in. And I used an analogy going into last year, and I'm refocused on it again, apparently, which is good, is going into the new year like skydiving. And the reason I use that is because when I went skydiving, and anyone who's done it will totally understand this, when the door opened and you're supposed to scoot to the edge and the jumper on my back, you're supposed to put your feet underneath the plane and then they roll over the top of you. It was in a tiny little Cessna. And when the door opened and I scooted to the edge, my feet immediately went to the wing because you're looking down and you're seeing all of, the perfect squares and circles. And your brain is going, what in the actual are you doing? So it's trying to stop you because it's, a natural instinct because that's not a normal thing for you to do. Eventually I did put my feet under the plane and we rolled out, and it was the biggest tummy turn I've ever had in my entire life. And the free fall was so incredibly loud and chaotic, but exhilarating at some point as well. And then when the parachute pulled and you settled in, you sit in this peace that truly is inexplicable because it's a silence that you've never heard. And I know that's a huge oxymoron, but it is. And I kind of just thought, but that's how life is when we have a fear. We don't want to jump into it because we're like, oh, this is going to be it's going to be a little hairy or a little scary or a little painful. But as soon as you get to that other side of it and that peace sets in, it's like, oh, thank God I jumped into that when I did, because now I'm on the other side of it and it's incredible. And we do forget that when we're in a place, I think, of pause. And so one of the other things we talked about a little bit yesterday was, a year end is a date on a calendar. Yesterday was a Sunday. We just so happen to look at it differently because of the calendar. And because every new day is a new beginning to try something or do something different. And I think that's probably another thing that I'm looking at is the scary things that I jumped into last year have led me to right here and have led to some of the most incredible friendships, relationships, situations that I never would have had if I didn't jump. So I just think it's a good reminder for everyone. Like let's jump into this, and get into the free fall of the new beginning of what's next. Because we don't always know what's on the other side of it. And it's usually so much better than what we ever imagined or what our fears told us why we shouldn't do it, because the stuff we make up in our head is always so much worse than reality. So those are kind of my opening thoughts, Don.
Well, I could take that for the next 40 minutes and still have something to say. People look at calendars differently. When you've been in business for the majority of your life, you're always dealing with year end, right? Year end inventory, year end audit, year end, and you're trying to make your year or get ready to position yourself for the next year. So when I look at my experience and don't really say where are you at, but first go to where you started at and what you've been climbing those steps to where you've gotten. And you find out certain steps were only meant to be a step, and other steps keep expanding on that step in a way. So the point is every year I'm always grateful just to have another year, just to put 2024 on my correspondence. But what's more important is what are you going to do for yourself this year and the people around you? Right? What's your community plan, let's say? Because once you get to a personal plan, it's like stuff. It's like things. It's like numbers. Once you get to how am I going to build more foundation, reinforce what we have here as a community? And what I love is big change. If you're going to make changes, why not make sweeping changes where you're comfortable? And getting back to the audit, what you've done, what's returned to you. And then you go to where you're not getting a very good return on time, effort, or whatever, and you expand what you are, right? Something doesn't have to be bad to be changed. It can just be redeployed to be better, right? And if you're your only shareholder, right, and you have to account to yourself every year for what you're asking yourself to invest, what's your return? And I think that makes a big difference going forward, because if you can break it down to what's going to take me closer to my goal or further away with every action I continue to make, right? If you're going to do this, it's not going to help that, or vice versa. So I think, and the other big thing that always comes up in the last week was commitment. Right? So many people get excited on the first day of the year. It's kind of along the same lines as don't go grocery shopping when you're hungry. It's easy to make a resolution when you got a hangover, when you get on a sale for the first time since the holidays start or whatever. But we're going to be 3 months. So I think this is fabulous for everybody watching, because this is an opportunity to make a switch of some sort, small, big, just a redirection that, to Kelly's point, could change your life, right? If I would ask Kelly, you want to come on a show? And she said no. And I said, okay, you never would have known what would have happened. Right. And I think what we're talking about is not just life, but how you live your life and how you can create an opportunity that you never even thought you would get or even knew was around. And then it falls into your lap. And I think that's been so valuable. So Charles, you came in a good week, a lot of reflection, a lot of anticipation. And, you seem to always rise to the occasion of whatever the topic or whatever somebody just said. You're always fully prepared. So how are you preparing into 2024?
Well, one thing I do is I write down goals for what I want to accomplish, and I don't limit it to 24. I'll write goals out into the future. And I have a sort of a future planner. It's about a 10-year, 12-year future planner that I use. And you can add in people's different names. I can add in my kids, my wife, and every maybe once a year, every couple times a year, my wife and I will look at it and talk about it.
Oh,
And the key takeaway for people though is to write down your goals. I don't know if we talked about that in the sessions I've been on the last few weeks. People who write down their goals, and I don't mean on an app, I mean write them down on a piece of paper, are 42% more likely to accomplish their goals. So just even ridiculous goals that you think you'll never achieve, write them down. That is a key success factor. That is important. That would be step one for me, to encourage people to write them down. And I also echo what you're both saying about getting out of your comfort zone. And I wrote in the comments here this notion of people. There's sort of three ways you can look at life. There's what you know that you know, what you know that you don't know, and there's what you don't know that you don't know. And it's what you don't know that you don't know is where real growth will happen. That's where probably fear comes up, where barriers, the unknown comes up. That's where you're going to get stopped. And what you want to really do is inquire into the areas of your life that you don't know, because those will be growth areas.
Very good, Charles. Kelly?
Yeah,
Well,
as he was saying that, and yeah, I'll let you go to comments right after this, is when you were, I remember that from when you were on earlier last year, I guess I should say now, about the you don't know what you don't know. It's a great reminder for all of us. Yeah, and I said to Dawn yesterday after you had left the call, is just, it's interesting how people come back in and it's like, it feels like Charles never left. Like he's never been gone. It's just, the riding a bike situation. It's like, oh, you just have such a presence and such strong things to share.
Thank you very much.
That one. And it's perfect for today. So, okay, Dawn, now you can go to.
No, I think I just love what everybody's saying. And it's so easy to do this when you don't have to do much. Yeah. Right. But let everybody else do what they can do best and share. And I think that's the giving part. If it was just, again, a personal situation or a financial situation, those are pretty easy projections, right? There's only so many variables and you can adjust them. But when it becomes something that's important and doing it, being part of it, that's where the year starts to count, right? If everybody had a slave just to get their paycheck or maybe get their big bonus, that was a whole year of doing that stuff to get, and usually it paid for stuff you never had a chance to enjoy, So I think when you start with what's important to the community, to yourself, that makes a difference. But let's go to comments because we got quite a few now. Charles was priming the pump with his comments to keep it going. I always try to put a comment up because it's like a tip jar. As soon as someone sees someone put something in, everybody wants to put some in. Christine's here. Happy New Year, Christine. You've been a welcome addition for the last 9-10 months. And, that's the difference between audience, community, and ultimately family and friends. And once you can get to the family and friends, that's what family and friends are. They stick with you. They're there for a longer time. And that's, I think, the key takeaway is who can you get to meet here strategically and professionally that can fill in that piece that you're a little challenged by, or maybe the obstacle to going forward with a major plan. So anyways, Christine, thanks for coming. Dennis, Happy New Year. Dennis makes everybody happy all year round with his rhymes. And, everybody looks forward to it, Dennis. So another one from Dennis is cheer another year of change for return for sure. Thank you on that one too. Here's one that says Chirino. Okay, we got that corrected. Mirjana's here from Serbia. I knew that without even thinking. Happy New Year out there in Serbia. Thanks for being here. Carrie's our local comic. Hello, another guest, Charles. Someone told me they had to get their doorbell fixed for New Year's Eve so they can ring in the new year. Waka waka. Keep as long as we keep it on the G rated. Besides writing it down, you have to take small actions towards your goal that makes a huge difference.
Yep.
It is momentum. I think you either got it or you don't. You want what you're doing today to push you further into tomorrow and take you back, because most people are used to what they're used to. And until a change can happen for a long enough period of time to break that old habit, then you have a better chance of securing your direction. And I really think people should make a people plan. Who that you have gotten to know or meet or trust, would you like to expand in some way by bringing value to them first, right, in order to open a conversation? And then have that strength of community and collaboration, because a lot of people get more courageous when they're with someone.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Someone's saying, hey, we can do it. You say, well, you think so, maybe I should think so, or hey, give it a shot. And I think really first of the year is what people should be focused on. What I want to give a shot to, because tomorrow I can go back to yesterday's shot. You're not burning any bridges. What you're actually maybe getting better at is being honest with yourself. Like if you're going to say it and write it, do it. And if you're not, don't write it or say it until you're ready to, because that confuses and I think loses the priority between what's important. And sometimes it's in what stage are you at? Sometimes you're trying to do the fifth stage when you got to do the first stage, or do a little, test a little, So anyways, there's all kinds of strategies to it. Let me see if there's anybody else. Okay, we got Charles, who plays two roles,
Yes.
I can't thank Charles enough. Also look into the Johari window. Is a technique designed to help people better understand their relationships with themselves and others. It was created by psychologists. That's a great point, Charles, because be a self-taught person. If you got a question, get an answer. Go to YouTube. Go to Google. I mean, don't be confused. At least be conversational. Know what you're dealing with, because the time you spend fearing and being intimidated, if you little knowledge can go a long way to say, well, that ain't going to happen. So I think there's all these exercises, and I think the strategy has to go along with a discipline or exercise in order to have a higher rate of success of the probability. So Kelly, getting into a lot of different stuff here for the new year. I hope people don't explode their heads with all this information we're sharing.
Well, and I mean, even that alone is a perfect point, is being overwhelmed by a goal is sometimes what stops people. Is like, oh my gosh, that's so huge. I don't even know where to start. But you got to start somewhere. And I agree. I do start the year, and I do always start with a new journal too. I'm a big journaler. I have a 5-minute journal that I've been using for years and years and years, that it's all about starting your day with gratitude and ending with gratitude. It really does only take 5 minutes, and it just helps keep your mindset in check. And of course, helping with goals. I know a lot of people are into vision boards. When I did a lot of mentoring, that's always what we did on either New Year's Eve or New Year's Day, would be a vision board, which is the same thing as writing it down, because you're putting an intention on paper. And there's something about when you physically write it, you've put it out into the universe, one, but two, it's kind of like a promise to yourself, because when we write something down, it's going to happen. Otherwise, a goal that we just think about, I mean, it's just a thought, because it won't really come to any type of fruition until you start making steps to make things happen. And Carl made a comment overhear Dawn about looking to build community with Dawn's help on LinkedIn Live, where everyone's success contributes to each other's success. I love that so much. And to go on what you also said about when someone else is with you, you're more apt to make things happen. Community, being surrounded by people that offer you a safe space, support, will always push you to do things beyond what you ever thought you could do yourself. Because when we feel safe and secure, we're just we're more wired to take a risk that we wouldn't if we didn't have that support. So finding a sense of community, and maybe that's something for everybody to consider this year. And this was another thing for last year for me on LinkedIn specifically. I had marketed for people my entire career, other people, other products, other things, making them into thought leaders, whatever it was. But I never focused on myself because it was always doing for others. And it was like, I need to start making a brand for myself and being purposeful with the connections that I was making on LinkedIn. And again, I could list a lot of people that I am blessed to say that are my friends and that I reach out to regularly or chat with regularly because of connecting on LinkedIn and doing it with intention. And that was one of my goals last year. So I actually crushed that goal. And one of them being just by, a phone call with Dawn Cohen that changed my life, and particularly my life on LinkedIn and so many other people on LinkedIn. So yeah, I think that's something everybody be more intentional about your connections and see what'll happen. And we don't always need to know where it's going either. Because when I started doing the lives, I had no clue. I was like, this is super interesting. I'm enjoying it. And I know that there's something there. So, and I loved that Dawn and I talked over the entire year about how we watched the show change, evolve, about the audience, about how people interacted. And it was just about being present in it and going, don't know where it's going, but it's going somewhere. And we're going along with it. And I think sometimes that's a great goal to have too, is you don't always have to be sure where it's going. Let it unfold the way it's supposed to. Because it took us months before we started talking about ways that we could make changes, and specifically into this year. So that's been a fun little thing too.
Well, that's a beautiful thing to say, Kelly, because it takes me through that whole time of when we had our first show to along the way. And there is a point where it can be done and you can be the one to do it. When you have that belief and faith that that's a done deal, if you want to take it on and allow it to take you with it. And the thing that has allowed us and everybody in this community to grow is that once we get smarter, we start acting smarter, doing smarter. So it's not like waiting for it, it's waiting for us to take advantage of it. What this has created is a communication platform for anybody who wants to flip the switch and start talking. I think what we've learned is it is all about the people, and it's all about their story. It's all about how people can relate to them. And it's also about having a panel that everybody challenges each other to think a little bit more, to come back with something more than they would have because someone gave them an easy softball that they can hit over the fence. And I think the other thing is when people value you, that makes a difference, right? I know me and Kelly and other people that have shows, we have guests that you wonder, what are they doing here, right? From who they are. And you know what? They look up to whoever it is who has that show that gives them that opportunity to share their voice. So it doesn't really become you and them. It's you with the medium and allowing them to participate in it. And again, just like any stage, how well prepared is the stage and the audience. You know, if you bring a guest speaker in, wouldn't you love to know that the audience is just going to go nuts about them? You know, that they're going to get so excited, and that's going to make the person so excited. And all you became was the facilitator, right? So if all you can match people and stay out of their way, and also, you know, keep the thing rolling, everybody can step right into that as soon as this show is over. All I got to do is go to creator mode, see if you've been approved, watch a YouTube on Restream or StreamYard, and by after lunch you could have a show, right? So, anyways, not to beleaguer that subject, but it's all within your fingertips. And here's what's even cooler. Now I'm on to it. Is we're here to help you make it happen faster, better, easier, and share what we're seeing with so many others. And I think that's so cool, is to be a pathfinder, you know, to be a scout and come back and say, hey, that land of milk and honey, I've been there. It is there. Charles, what do you have to say to all this?
I think it's fantastic. And a couple of things I want to just extrapolate on what you've said. Some people may be looking out to that land of milk and honey and wondering, well, how do I get there? And many people, when they're sitting down and goal setting, they tend to stand in the present and they look at how they get somewhere from the present into the future. And they're using, and what they don't realize is that they're actually using the past to help them get to the future, not in a way that they're informed by the past, but they might even be limited by the past. So they're using tools and techniques that might not have worked for them in the past to get into the future. So the thing that I would encourage people to do, whether it's doing something on LinkedIn Live, or it's another really bold, audacious goal outside of your comfort zone that you want to accomplish, number one is you can use vision boards. Those are excellent. There's no doubt about it. Research has shown that those are powerful. But using vision boards or just writing the story out, you can create what will your future look like in 5 years, or write a letter to yourself. What will you be saying to yourself on December 31st, a year from now, or 364 days from now? Create that future. And the further out you can go and the more detailed you can go, the more powerful it is. And then after you've created the future, you can start to connect the dots looking backwards. It's hard to connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect the dots looking backwards, or more successfully connect the dots looking backwards. So if you you have to trust that those dots standing in the future that you've created for yourself are going to come back and connect into the present day. And you have to trust your gut. You have to trust your destiny. You trust your life, trust your friends and community, trust whatever faith you may or may not have, if faith is important. And this approach will not let you down. And if you stick to it on a regular basis through journaling, it'll become even more powerful and make all the difference in your life.
That's beautiful. And I think it has so much value at so many levels. And I think that's what I like about the show. It's a buffet. You could take a little bit from that tray, a little every day, and nothing is hard to swallow or digest. And there's always another buffet tomorrow, right? So there's no scarcity or fear of that. And I think when you can live without fear or feeling of want or scarcity, you know, then life opens up to you. You know, what I found, it was kind of funny. Me and Ann shared New Year's Eve together for over 50 some times already. And what I found interesting, and we kept it real quiet. We had a little celebration with the kids earlier in the week. And we started out like, what was the most exciting experience this year? Right? You know, who did you meet this year that made a big difference that you didn't know a year ago? And who left a year, you know, within a year? Mm-hmm. So when you position it in a way that you're already focusing on what was the best parts of something instead of what are you thinking now, because wherever that goes is where it's going to end up expanding into. So I think controlling the messaging so that you can keep people together, right? You don't move so fast that people can't keep up, and you definitely can't be a leader while you're following. So I think that's really where you are kind of like a conductor. You're bringing this in it when you think it needs it and balancing that. And it's all about the people. And because it's all about the people, it doesn't have to be a lot about you if you're unselfish, if you don't hog the spotlight, and if you make people feel and look better for them being around everything, they'll want more of it naturally. So I think when you appeal to people's simple instincts of safety, of trust, of civility, of lack of needing to judge, that's a refreshing thing. Too many people, me and Harvey were talking about it, they get into this overproduction stuff where they got all this flashing lightning and they do the countdown and then they come back and they look even plainer compared to that intro, and then they do the whole thing. And I think people just want to feel like you're real, you're honest, and you're dependable. Whatever you're going to give me, you're going to keep being that kind of person. So Kelly, you've had so many experiences this year.
Oh my God.
Over 100. And your show with Christy Howard, The Awesome Journey, and which is a big hit. And it's because of live streaming, and it's because of the guests that are available through LinkedIn that don't have as many quality formats or platforms to appear on. A lot of these people are sitting back and they're treated like like no big deal, while someone else is not really honoring them for the honor they deserve. So Kelly, share a little bit on people experiences that you've gained from.
Well, oh my gosh. And I think I probably referenced this yesterday and maybe said it, but I know it's been on a recent show or two for sure, is if you would have told me this time last year that I would have accomplished all the things that I did, specifically speaking with live streaming and the people that I've met, I wouldn't have said no, or, no way, because I don't think, I don't put things to say like, oh, well, of course I could do it if I put my mind to it. But I just didn't see that journey coming. And those are the ones that you appreciate the most, right? All I knew at the end of last year is I wanted to have a healthier work environment, balance, what have you, and in figuring out what my career path was going to look like going forward after, being laid off in 2020, like so many people. And I refer to myself as an accidental consultant because it wasn't that I decided to go into it and left a job. I needed to do something because I needed work and I could not get hired as a marketing executive. And I didn't see a live stream coming into play and how it focuses so much on mental health, which is what this show does too. Because when you and I, Don, have talked about this a lot also, is creating a community, because watching how we had people from all over the world watching. And in the beginning, we didn't even have a word of the day. So it was just, we're going live. Let's see what the audience says and we'll have conversation. Is that what everybody was looking for was human connection, whether it was love, support, or just knowing that they weren't alone. That's what the space was. And that's what it did. And that translates to everyone, everywhere. And being in that cycle, I guess, if you will, or that story as it was writing itself, is beautiful. Because I didn't expect it. It was a very unexpected, beautiful path that I didn't resist. If I would have let my fear take over, like you said, Don, I could have said, no, I don't want to be on your live show in 2 days. I'm terrified. But I said yes, because I was like, girl, you said the jumping out of the airplane thing, you got to go with it. Because it seems scary. And I would never have had all of the incredible connections, the conversations with people, and the true relationships with people that I've had, not just connections, not just numbers on my profile page. I'm talking like real friends, and I love that. And that was about being intentional, um, about being present also, because I think a lot of times, and that is something I learned from 2020 and not being able to get hired, was I was defining myself by my job. I mean, that was so much of where I thought my identity was. And so having that stripped away, it felt not good. I mean, at all. And I thought, I don't even know who I am anymore, or how do I define myself if I don't have work in this way? But I think what it helped is like, but it's not about work at all. It's about being present and really listening to what's going on around you. And I know I mentioned this a little bit yesterday, even being with my family this last week for the holidays, um, is in a moment, sitting and just being present in it and feeling everything in it, feeling the wind, the way it felt on my face, and watching my nephew and their wives, hitting golf balls. Those are the things that matter. It's not about a job. And I know that I think Carrie made a comment about he was going to put on his goals to get a job. And man, I 100% feel for you, because I know so many people who are struggling to find work. So, we're putting out positive vibes for you on that as well. And I do think that's a goal, but what am I going to do differently about it? Because I think too, for so many job seekers, and Christy and I talk about this a lot because she deals with job seekers on the regular, is they are feeling overwhelmed and what word am I looking for? And desperate. And that's a horrible place to feel like I'm desperate just to get a job because I need a paycheck. And how that can translate on an occasion, the desperation, doesn't read well to an employer. Unfortunately, it's just a fact. But I think sometimes it can make people feel, and I've seen several during this year or two, that feel like, what's the point of even trying anymore? And that's a hard place to be. And that is when you, I think, need your community and know, hey, I need to start doing some things that are going to help me out, whether it's going to the gym, going for a walk. I mean, all of those things about, physical activity and how that helps our mindset adjust. And yeah, I think we can go on so many avenues on this topic for so many different reasons.
Well, and I think because we've gone through these topics over the last 10, 11 months on a regular basis, and I think to your point, Kelly, you listen better around family if you've been spending the last 11 months listening to other people, engaging other people every day. So that skill set unknowingly gets exercised when you're around other groups of people, and you'll let people shine a little bit more, introduce your relatives to each other again. And did you know Aunt whatever just won a prize, got in the paper. And let's hear it for Aunt Sally. And I just was so amazed. Jim did. I mean, it's the same thing we're doing here is like, hey, share a little bit about what you're into, what your success is versus, oh, that's old Uncle Jim and he's this and that, and everybody comes in with that. But here's the thing I want to share with people who are looking for something, and more specifically looking for someone to give them something, is don't wait, create. Hire yourself for what you want to do while you're waiting for someone to hire you. If you said, hey, I want to make $1,000 a week and I'll give you 50 hours, steal time away from my family and things that I want to do, well, put a 50-hour work week for yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you won't work as hard as you will for someone else, what does that tell you? And you know what? Whatever you're doing for yourself isn't going to make the other factor, if it's ever going to show up, not show up. It's independent. And I think that's the key. What would you do 50 hours a week for yourself? And if you couldn't do something, what could you learn at 50 hours a week? What could you read, right? If someone says, well, you don't have to do anything, just read these books, put in 8 hours, 10 hours a day and read some more or whatever. And I think while you're waiting, you'll find out you don't have to wait. You're already there. So, Charles, you're in the education field.
Yeah.
How does this all apply?
Yeah, absolutely. That is my message to people like Carrie who are out looking for a job. Absolutely, Carrie, you have skills. Everybody here has skills. And why be a slave to a job? You can actually create a job. And there's many ways to do that. You can go out and look into Fiverr.com, which is the services equivalent of Amazon.com and eBay. You could go to Upwork.com, which is a little bit more project oriented, and have a look at your skills and how you could market your skills outside of a regular full-time job. It's a great way to fill the gap while you're looking for a job. And after a while, you might actually find, you know what, I'm better and more successful at doing this, running my own business, doing my own gig, than I am actually getting a job. So that's something that people should really be thinking of. How can they create multiple streams of revenue? You
Yes.
know, absolutely take the downtime to level up and upgrade your skills, and check your whatever pension scheme you're in. Do a health check on your 401k. Do a health check on your finances, and just do a whole 360 of your life and your wheel of life. But absolutely, I very much support the idea of everybody has skills, and those skills are marketable. Find something that you love to do, and then find someone who will pay you to do that.
I think that's perfect advice. And most of the things I know Kelly and I and most other people have learned here is simple and basic, go a lot longer than complicated, convoluted, and start with whatever you start with. Anything is better than nothing, right? Because nothing's going to get you nothing. And I think if you just, again, what can you do that you're comfortable doing? Even in some of my communication, the reason to have a live stream is to fulfill your passion. So instead of what do you do and what would you like to share about what you do, what have you always wanted to do? What is something that if all you did was surround yourself with people who are butterfly people, that by itself would be worth waking up every day for. And then you'd be surprised that they will see value. And if they're further visionaries than most, they will want to engage you. They'll see things faster than you will in yourself because they know what they're looking for and they know what they can use. So I think part of it is visibility, because that's one thing I've seen this year is Tara Gooch was the first person to ever show up. She's coming back on a show in February. She was here every Friday for 6 months, and she's doing her second TEDx in January. She's finishing her second book. She's having speaking engagements everywhere, and she had never done a live stream. She had just transitioned into being entrepreneurial with her husband. Before that, it was a big leap, to leave your job and do this full time. But it made it all happen. And now she's living a lifestyle that's just beginning.
Yeah.
This isn't like you do something, you accomplish it. We planted so many seeds. We've shared so many stories and people. It takes a while for it to settle. It takes a while for people to sell themselves on what they're seeing and feeling versus what they used to think and what was acceptable to them. And when you see good, everything else starts to show itself for what it is. And I think that's why everybody owes themselves the gift of discovery. Open a door, close the door as fast as you want. And you know what you'll find? And that's what people say they find. 90% of everything you worry about never happens.
That's right.
You can throw 90% away, not even knowing which does. And the 10% that does happen, there would be no way to prepare for.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you're just kind of like, spinning your wheels. Dennis comes back with a compliment. Don, we do value what you do every day. You show up every day and we listen and learn from what you and your guests say. And, that's so cool because being wanted, being needed, I don't think there's an entertainer, if there was an audience, wouldn't show up tomorrow. Right? The only reason people retire is they get retired. But if you can get yourself on a platform and attract people like yourself, because we're dealing with 1 billion registered LinkedIn users, simulcasting on YouTube, which is even bigger than that, you think you couldn't find 5 or 10 people there if you did the right thing every day for everybody? And you know what you'll attract is people who attract the people you want to be with.
Mhm.
And I think that's where numbers start to be a question mark. If someone starts this year and say, I want 10,000 more connections, I learned early on, I was doing this race to getting 20 some thousand connections in like 4 months. And everybody was rooting us on, and we had hundreds of tags, and everybody was getting into it. And one gentleman wrote, he says, well, I'm only at 6,500 and I can't wait to get to 20,000. And I was very matter of fact. I said, well, if you're not doing anything with 6,500, what's another 13,000 going to do you? Well, it's really be thoughtful. To that point, Charles, what do you think about some of these comments? I see you made a big one here. I want to play it. Use future storytelling to create the future from the future by envisioning the world you desire and its underlying principles. And I like the world is something you can define, right?
That's right. Yes.
So
So this is the power of storytelling from the future, where you envision the future, you create what your life will look like, and into incredible detail in some exercises, people will have you, coaches will have you write down what you did from a Monday to a Sunday in your future world, right down to the type of coffee maker that you use to make your coffee in the morning. You can get into a lot of detail. And then from there, you can start connecting the dots back into the present day.
well, you know what's so cool is this is our second in a row together. And, it is so energetic and thought provoking and positive. And it kind of reminds me of when Mary Gardner was on the show. And after talking, she says, what's getting really hot on the speaking tour is panels that travel.
Mm.
Right? So all of a sudden, 3 people show up who talk about something like this. Because if it's working here, it would work just as well there.
Mhm.
And that's why I'm trying to figure out, if it wasn't for time zones, Charles would be an integral part of this.
Yeah.
But why should time zones be the factor if the value is already there? And I think that's the key, is what trio do people want to join, or duets? And no one has to be committed to anyone, right? I mean, if you take some country singers, some had duets and some had solo careers, and I guess it goes for all people in music. But anyways, it's what can you be better for the presence of someone else, and how do you make somebody else better by the presence of you? And it's actually just going back to having workout buddies, right? People will get you to the gym more than you might have gone by yourself. People will say, hey, you can do it. Don't give up. People are waiting for someone to say you're wrong. You got it in you. They're almost saying, tell me I'm not right here, that there's something I can still wait for or do. And with the new world, the new technology, what wasn't possible yesterday is possible today. So there was times when people said you couldn't do it, and they were right.
Mhm.
Until someone found the material or the whatever it was. And if you believe, and that's what they say faith is, in the invisible, if you know that there's something working on your behalf, right? Something that only wants you to do the best you can, right? I think if everybody has that as their goal going forward, I'll be the best I can, I'll do the best I can. That's a good foundation. So Kelly, we're coming up on 50 minutes. It goes so quickly.
Oh,
These could
I
be
looked down just a few minutes ago and was like, "Are you?" I thought I looked at it incorrectly. I mean, it always goes by fast, but this seemed like super speed today for some reason, which is crazy. I mean, just so many good things. I've been reading the comments, and I missed how Charles can do his comments, and the reason that I don't, because I'm like I get distracted too easily, and so Dawn would call me and say, like, hey Kelly, it's your turn, and I'd be like, so what were you talking about? Because I would be too focused on the other thing. So it's such a gift, and I enjoy it because you share so many wonderful things in the comments to go back to later. And I think that's sort of another thing with lives that people forget. Hey, just because it's live and you can't be there at this time, you can always go back and watch it,
That's right.
which is the greatest thing about it. And I think going into this year, which I'm still just baffled that it's 2024, like how the heck did that happen? Is what there was a question in there somewhere. What in 2024 are we going to do that scares us, or maybe that is something we want to go into? And I don't know the answer to that. I don't have one right at the moment. I just know I'm not going to limit myself. And maybe that is the goal, is not limiting myself. Because last year, like I said, making one decision to say yes, and the path that it took me down and where it continues to take me is something I didn't know what I didn't know. So it wouldn't even have been on my goal list. So I think always just staying open. And I love that you mentioned, Charles, about multiple revenue streams. And I say that to people all the time. I don't want just one. And I think after losing my job in 2020, I just didn't want to be bound to one thing anymore, because it was like, holy mackerel, like that pulled the rug out from underneath me. And I didn't have any control over anything else. And I'm like, I don't ever want to be in a place again where if something does happen, because organizations, they don't care about you. And I don't mean that to sound cold-hearted in any way. It's just a fact. I mean, if they need to cut their bottom line and they have to lay off 500 people, they're going to do it. They're not going to sit down and go, this might really upset Kelly or Charles or Dawn, so maybe we won't lay them off. We'll wait. I mean, that's not the conversation. And taking control of being able to say, I'm going to have multiple streams, so I don't rely on just one way, and looking at things differently. And I think what Dawn, you were saying about, and Charles, you did too, for sure, about creating your own job. Because you're right. If you're in downtime and you're looking for work, what is it that you could do, or that maybe you'd want to do? And this is where I think intentional connections come in. If there's somebody else that you admire, their posts or their content or whatever, reach out to them. And also look for people. Getting into the consulting space for me, I immediately was like, well, I'm going to need a designer, a web developer. I'm going to need certain people. Hey, would you be interested if I were to get this this client or this contract? Would you be able to work with me? And picking people who you want to work with, like, that's been pretty cool. From the other side of it is like, I want to work with people who align with me morally, ethically, and that I truly enjoy being around and that I learn from. Because you're right. If you're looking for work, you might as well do something. And I will say, I took a ton of coursework in 2020 just because I had time. And I needed to fill my time with something other than just all the negativity. And so, because LinkedIn offers a lot of coursework. There's a lot of people here that offer coursework for so many things. Get updated on your craft. Go take a course on something new. And there's a lot of things out there that are free that you don't have to pay for. So that was a whole lot to unpack for people to think about going into 2020, and maybe ideas for what they could put on their goal list.
Yeah, and I think, if you got something to say, why not say it in the most amplified, relevant reach that you can? And, you don't even have to do the show. You could be a guest on the show. Start with that.
Yes, try it out.
I mean, look at us. I mean, if one of us decided not to talk for the whole show, it would be okay, and the show would work. So you only have to do what you're comfortable. And, what you find is most people can't get out of their own way.
Yeah,
Think
and I just want to interject on this. This is one thing that Don and I have talked about all year, and this will be a quick one, I promise. Is when people came on for the first time, they were nervous. Even people who had done a lot of podcasting, but live just has a different connotation of how we perceive that. And watching them at the beginning being nervous and maybe a little bit tentative when we first start, but by the end, and then when we go backstage after the show's over, how people have ignited in like this whole new way, and it's a cool thing to watch. But everyone has been like, "Oh my gosh, that was just so great!" Because all it is we're just having a conversation.
Well, and I think it shows or demonstrates capability. When you become really excited and successful at something that an hour earlier was terrifying you, right? You've overcome that, but then you think, hey, what else I haven't re-examined that maybe I'm more capable of? And the other element is trust. If you trust who takes you on a boat ride, you trust that they're not going to have you drowned, right? They're not going to put you in danger because, and they know better. So your fear is not their fear. Their knowledge is their confidence. And I think that's so important. And, how bad do you want something? I think that's important. When you get to the point where you just say, whatever it takes, that's what, as long as I don't go to jail or a hospital, hey, I'm in for whatever it is. I'm not embarrassed by accepting my mistakes or accountability or responsibility. But I think to Kelly's point, even if you can't go to it, you should at least have the door open for it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I think that's so important because I never thought I'd catch another wave. I retired 7 years ago, and I got a great family and a great life. But when you're used to having value and all of a sudden you find a vehicle that allows you to move right into it and tips the scales to the ones who are going to work today versus the entitled ones that went to work and expect everybody to support them. It's a new game. It's a new deck of cards that's gotten shuffled. And the beauty of it is you can pick the cards you want to play and you can look at everybody else's cards. How easy is that? So anyways, Charles, I want you to give your final thoughts. I want to thank you in front of everybody for making the end of one year and the beginning of a new year very memorable and valuable. And, I just believe you shine on a medium like this because of your calm, easygoing resolved. I think that's what people really love to lean into is someone who's not leaning into them. Like Kelly says, it's always the people that hit you up with a pitch as soon as you meet them versus somebody that says, hey, this person, no danger here, no pressure, no anything. And now you can turn your what's going on here, what can I learn? And I think that's so beautiful. Linda came back.
Linda.
Great discussion, comments. It's so great that people are here and you never know that. There's like 35, 40 people show up for the show and there's like 8 or 10 people comment. And that's why I think Charles made a good point. Tell us where you're from, we know you're here, and then we know you're in the audience. Great. Okay. Love having people willing to share. A lady asked me yesterday how I knew so much. I said, because I stay plugged in with many avenues, volunteer for our local ROSC Council, 3 different Bible studies, always willing to become a part of ways to grow and know, keeping our minds open and keeping my nutrition level to allow me as a 73-year-old mom, grandmother, and great-grandmother be involved in life, not watch it go by. Here's to a great year ahead with you all. You're so sweet, Linda. And, it's comments like that that kind of tell people who don't know you as well as we do, who you are, and knowing you're in the audience and knowing you're feeling this and sharing this. And everybody here is an influencer, right? I mean, just think being all those responsibilities and now becoming a broadcaster through a broadcaster if you want to. And you're always welcome to come on the show because anybody who appears in the audience deserves to be seen, you know? And I think that's how you build communities. Everybody brings their little brick. Dennis comes back to agree. Trust helps keep you stay afloat and helps you get ahead, not go under. You know, and practicing trust, even if it's a little trust, maybe if it's new trust, someone that you found you couldn't trust, and maybe they had some revelation or they made a change, you know, and you can grant somebody that grace to help them. So Charles.
Yeah, some closing comments. Well, I know that some people might be going into 2024 with some trepidation and a little bit of fear that Kelly talked about earlier. And when it comes to the future and planning for the future, anticipating the future, creating the future, one individual that I often quote, which you would have seen the last 2 days, is Werner Erhard. And one of his most well-known quotes is the following: "You are not your thoughts, you are the observer of your thoughts." And the idea encapsulates the notion that we have the ability to detach ourselves from our thoughts and our emotions and recognize them separate from our two selves. So in other words, if you have fear about something such as not having a job at the moment, you can say, well, I'm an observer of my thoughts, so I can actually separate myself from the fear that I'm feeling. And that suggests that by observing your thoughts without attachment, we can gain greater clarity and freedom and control over our lives. And so my call to action would be to really be a reflective practitioner and observe yourself and observe the thoughts you're having, the fears, the exciting thoughts, the good thoughts, and make New Year's goals. Make goals, write them down, do vision boarding as Kelly suggested, dig within, write down your goals, and discover what you would like to have happen in your life this year and beyond. And this helps you to do your part and create those affirmations, whether they're visual or written, to really live a life that will fully be one that you want to live in the coming year and beyond.
Wow. That was great from start to finish, Charles. Kelly, any last thoughts?
Yes, but I think that was the perfect way to end, quite frankly. I'm going to end like I always do. First of all, with much gratitude to both of you. It's been wonderful to have yesterday and today with you two. And looking into 2024, I will continue to say the same thing to everyone: is please go out and shine so bright that others can't help but shine too.
Well, that is so perfect. You know, Charles, Kelly, and you know, we're three different jewels that when you put together, everybody and everything shines so much brighter, to your point. And something that wants people to feel that, right? You can show somebody something, but if they can see how you feel and they say, wow, how do I get to that? You know, how do I get to happiness and success? And you know what? It's there for everyone. Everybody has greatness within them. You know, everybody thought they could be an NBA player or a president or an astronaut when they were 3, 4 years old.
Mm-hmm.
It's beautiful when people can dream again and believe dreams can come true. And I think that's what the beautiful thing about 2024 is. This is the start, right? The game's on now. You know, the ball's in play. How aggressive in a good way do you want to be? And how do you want to look at a year from now and look back and say, because of this or that this happened? So anyways, thank you for the whole year of support. We couldn't have been anything, or we wouldn't have had a reason to be anything without you. And the audience always is the first and most important element of shows like this. So thank you, Charles. I can't thank you enough. I'm kind of sad already. We're not going to be back tomorrow. And with that, have a wonderful day. Beautiful year.
Oh, I do my little heart here. There you go. Happy New Year, everybody.